$15,000 of your home could be paid for by Congress. And the best part is this thing is retroactive. So whether you are searching for a new home, debating on getting a new home, or you recently purchased a new home and you're a first-time home buyer, you would get $15,000 scot-free. It's really that simple. And this is actually completely separate from that $20,000 to $25,000 first-time home buyer grant that would cover closing costs and the down payment on a home. And I have read that there's the potential for both of these to be passed. Both of them are proposals right now, but we may see both of them passed in a certain infrastructure bill that is coming up very soon. They've actually cited that if there is help for first-time home buyers within that infrastructure bill, the odds of that bill being passed increase because there's a general consensus that helping first-time home buyers secure housing is a good thing, and Congress agrees on this, and it would make it a little bit easier for Congress to pass something like this according to the Biden administration. So I've spent the last hour or so reading over the bill text for this new proposal, the $15,000 proposal. So let's talk about everything you need to know. I've highlighted the most important points, and then I'll give context where context is due. So let's hop over to the bill here. First, the actual credit size. The size of the credit is 10% of the purchase price of the residence, and it has to be your primary residence, or $15,000, whichever is lower. So it's a maximum of $15,000. And this is a refundable tax credit. Now, what that means is a fully refundable tax credit is a tax credit where if you don't owe any additional taxes, you actually receive the additional amount in a refund. So let's say that you owe $5,000 in taxes, just to keep this simple. You get a $15,000 fully refundable tax credit that would wipe away the $5,000, plus you get a check for an additional $10,000 for just buying a house and building your personal wealth, because buying a home is one of the best and easiest ways to build your personal wealth. I mean, you have to live somewhere anyways, so you might as well put that money towards building equity and building some wealth for yourself. And that's why there's a big focus right now on this generational home buying, the first generation home buying program, first time home buyer, because these things can pass down to further generations and just help out your family in the future and set them up a little bit better by simply owning where you live. I mean, it's really that simple. Now, the credit does have some income limits, and the easiest way to read this bill, this is why I highlighted it in a specific way, is to kind of read through the lines, because there's certain words that when you're reading these bills, it's like you can just ignore those words and you have a better picture, a better idea of what exactly is going on. But if you appreciate me reading these bills so you don't have to, just go ahead and hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you appreciate it. But anyways, no credit shall be allowed to a taxpayer with a modified adjusted gross income that is greater than the applicable amount. Well, what's the applicable amount? We scroll down a little bit further. The term applicable amount means an amount that is equal to 160% of the area median income. Now, luckily, I found a tool that will tell you exactly what your area median income is, and I'll have this linked in the description. It's this Fannie Mae AMI lookup tool. So let's just put in a fake address, 125 Money Lane, 125 Money Lane. That'd be a good address to have. Okay. And then we just hit OK here, and it tells you the area median income is $72,200. 100% of that, 80% of that, which is the 80% mark and the 50% mark of AMI are generally used as benchmarks for a lot of programs. So they put that in there for you. So when 80%, 57,000, 50%, 36,000. In this case, you have to be 160%. So you would multiply 72,200 by 1.6, and that'd be the income limit for your area. So this is very open. Most people, the average American, will be able to use and utilize this tax credit, which makes this very exciting because that other proposal, the $20,000 to $25,000 down payment assistance, was a little bit more narrowly focused and pared down to select individuals. And this one is much more broad and open to just the average American. Some more limitations based on the area median purchase price. So you have to use this on a home that is within 110% of the area median purchase price. Now, this one's a little bit weird because generally homes in an area are similar prices. You don't usually find like a huge mansion in an area with houses half the price. So you just have to be within 110%. I think, again, in most cases, that's not going to be an issue whatsoever unless you're buying a mansion next to regular houses. But I mean, why would you even need $15,000 if you're buying a mansion in the first place? Inflation adjustment. I guess I should say, who doesn't want an additional $15,000? But you don't need it as much. Inflation adjustment. So I think with this, the goal would be to keep this credit for a while, because there's some clauses in here that kind of express it in a way where they want to keep this program alive. And here's one of them, the inflation adjustment. They're saying that they would adjust the $15,000 mark with inflation every year based on the cost of living adjustment, which I found interesting. And I was reading an article about this, and they were really citing in 2008 and 2009, there was a similar home buyer tax credit that was $8,000 to $9,000. It got bumped up a little bit. And they were saying that there was an extremely successful program, and they're kind of basing this program off of that. So I think that's both why they want to increase it with inflation and keep it for multiple years, because they said there was a very successful program. Age limitation, you have to be at least 18 years old to be a part of this program. So again, for most people, totally open. Definitions, first-time home buyer. This one might be a little bit more open than you had expected. So a first-time home buyer under this bill means you haven't had a home, you haven't owned a home in the 3-year period ending on the date of the purchase of your new home. So if you haven't owned a home for 3 years, they're just considering you a first-time home buyer, and you haven't taken this credit in any other taxable year. Again, this makes me think that they're trying to make this just like a long-term thing. That way you don't take the same credit in another year. You can only take the credit once, they're saying. Also, principal residence, this has to be the residence that you actually live at. There's some additional limitations that we'll talk about later. Construction, so you can actually build a house using this tax credit. And if you're constructing a home, they're considering the first day of that home ownership being the day you actually move into the residence, not the day that construction starts. So that's really exciting. I know a lot of people want to build homes. You could actually utilize this $15,000 tax credit if it comes out. Now, I'm actually pretty optimistic that this thing gets passed, because again, there's just so much support with home ownership, and it being a refundable tax credit, it kind of seems like a no-brainer to do. Recapture of credit. This is very important. So you actually have to live in the residence, the primary residence, for 4 years to receive the entire credit. If you move out anytime faster than 4 years, you're going to have to pay a portion of that credit back in future taxes. So it's basically 25% a year. So if you live in your home for 3 years and then you move out, you're going to have to pay back 25% of that credit on your next year's taxes. So just something to consider. You're supposed to live there for 4 years. And then moving on from here, I think there's just one more thing to mention. And oh yeah, this is the retroactivity. So you can actually use this credit, you'll be able to use this credit if you purchased a home anytime after December 31st, 2020. So it goes back a few months as of right now, or whenever this gets passed, it would go back retroactively to the beginning of the year. So if you purchase a home in January, you still would get this $15,000 credit on your 2021 tax return. And who doesn't want $15,000? So this is a pretty exciting program as far as home ownership and just making it a little bit more accessible. Now with that $20,000 to $25,000 credit, a lot of people are concerned that it's just going to jack up home prices by $20,000 or $25,000 right away. I don't think that this $15,000 credit would have quite the same effect, because you wouldn't be receiving that money up front. You'd have to file your taxes and then you'd receive it in the long term. So I think not receiving it up front may help the housing market not be quite as affected by it. Of course, there's going to be more demand if people feel more secure knowing that $15,000 is coming their way. So there absolutely is cause and effect, but maybe not quite as much as that other credit. And you know what, let's just briefly cover that other credit in case you aren't aware of it already. So this is the Down Payment Towards Equity Act of 2021. Again, this is a proposal as of right now, but it's kind of building up steam. You'd be eligible to receive between $20,000 and $25,000 for down payment assistance. The funds may be used for down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, or payments to reduce interest on the mortgage. You actually are able to reduce the amount of interest you pay on the mortgage if there's funding left over from that $20,000 to $25,000. You have to either be a first-generation home buyer or a first-time home buyer. And the first-time home buyer requirement here is, again, you haven't owned a home within the last 3 years. The income requirements on this one are lower. Like I said earlier, this one's a little bit more narrowly focused and targeted. You'd have to be within 120% of your area median income or 180% of your area median income in a high cost area. And then a first generation home buyer is someone who had parents who either never owned a home or they previously owned a home and they were foreclosed on, there was a short sale, or there was a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So if they lost their home, you would still be considered a first generation home buyer in this case. You'd be you'd receive between $20,000 and $25,000, dependent on whether you qualify as a socially and economically disadvantaged individual. And the program funds can be used to assist in the purchase of any home and a mortgage that is eligible by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, is insured either by the FHA or USDA, or meets the definition of a qualified mortgage. And then with this program, there may be a required repayment of assistance if you move sooner than 5 years. So it's 20% per year, depending on the sale of the property. However, with this one, they basically say if you didn't make money on the sale of the home, if it was less than 5 years, you wouldn't have to pay back the entire amount. So there we have it, a $15,000 first-time home buyer credit. I think this one's going to be extremely popular, and we'll see if this gets passed on its own, if it gets passed at all, or as a part of that newly coming infrastructure bill. So it's going to be really interesting to follow and see exactly what happens. I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.